going on, everybody? Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of the Welch Report with me, Jean-Luc Welch. Make some noise and clap it up. Get excited wherever you are. We are back with another action-packed and fun episode covering the world of sports, as we have so much to cover in the world of boxing, with a potential robbery with Richardson, Hitchins, one of the rising stars in the boxing world, against Gustavo Lemos, as well as the MVP race in NBA is heating up, and all the happenings in the sports world, specifically pertaining to the NBA. We got a lot to cover, and again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the show. Please keep on leaving a like on the videos, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with everybody that you know, so we can keep on building up this empire of a community. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers. We are briskly moving our way up through the ranks of this whole social media landscape. Thank you so much for all of the support. Keep on telling people about the show. Put people on. Absolutely. Play it 10 times over. Go rewatch the back catalog to wonder at my marveling accuracy in these boxing fights that we always keep on talking about, as well as all my other takes that we have on this channel. So again, all the support, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But without further ado, we got so much to cover in a short amount of time. Let's jump right into it. First, we got to talk about boxing. Since we're talking about boxing, it is time to step into the ring. That is right. Ring the bell. Let's get it started. Round one of this segment in the boxing segment of this show going underway, as we have to discuss Richardson Hitchins in a robbery win against Gustavo Lemos in a fight that, again, if Hitchins won this, it was going to be his opportunity next to get a shot at a legitimate title. If he won against Lemos, he was going to get a legitimate crack at the upper elite level at 140 pounds. This was his next step, his biggest test up until the elevation of his career, and he did not suffice. He was not good in this fight. He got beat by Gustavo Lemos. This was a outright blatant robbery. In the biggest sense of the word, there is no reason, no doubt in my mind. Hitchins lost that fight. He didn't deserve that victory. He robbed Lemos of a legitimate opportunity to fight against people like Subrial Matias, against people like, and Isaac Cruz, potentially anybody in that championship aspect. He robbed him of that opportunity. This was not, the judges got this so wrong. There was one scorecard that was absolutely egregious. What was it, like 117, 113? Impossible to see it that way. It's impossible to see this fight going in Hitchins' favor. This is ridiculous, and one of the key components and the key reasons why people don't like the sport of boxing, because constantly we keep seeing these types of decisions by judges and by the people making these careers possible, the people that shape the outcome of what a fighter's trajectory could potentially be. They consistently get it wrong, and it doesn't make sense why they keep getting it wrong when something is as clear as day, as this was blatant robbery on the side of Gustavo Lemos, because he deserved that win. I don't care if you're a fan of Hitchins or not. There's no reason. I love Hitchins as a fighter. He's clean, he's calm, he's collected. He is a cat who is legitimately precise. He is accurate. I love what he's got as a foundation for his boxing ability. I can only wait to see it grow, but I'm not going to sit here and say that should have been a win on his part when it absolutely shouldn't have. That was a blatant robbery. The fight went exactly the worst way, or in exactly the worst way that Hitchins ever wanted the fight to go. The very way to beat Hitchins and the formula to beat him was finally exposed in this fight. No, something I had speculated as I watched him go on. Hitchins got mauled. Hitchins got outworked. Hitchins got outmuscled. Hitchins got beat in every form of fashion. Literally beat up and muscled around the entirety of the night. Stalked and walked was the mentality of Gustavo Lemos, and he did not break from that at all. And the accuracy that we normally see from Hitchins was not enough to get out of the controlling volume and pressure and the muscling, bullying nature that we saw Lemos have in this fight. He couldn't escape it. The accuracy wasn't enough. He didn't have the pop, nor the volume, nor the to be perfectly honest, nor the strength to be able to keep him off him. All of that time trying to bounce around and invade and be away, it takes a lot of energy. You have to be really, really good at the ability to be elusive and the ability to essentially outbox, to be able to keep that constant control like we've normally seen Hitchins do throughout the entirety of his career. But now, going up against somebody who's got stamina, who is indeed strong, who is relentless and has the same ability as much as you can to outbox him, he can turn this into a slugfest, which he's done over the last, 6 or 10 fights. He ain't seen the end of a round in 3 years, 4 years? He hasn't seen, in terms of Lemos, the end of a fight to go to distance in about 4 or 5 years? Just about. It's been a minute since he's actually gotten to a decision. And Hitchins, goes and wins most of his fights by decision. So this was a situation where whenever a pot-shotting perfectionist goes up against a brawler, the goal is always, and the pressure is always on, not the pressure fighter, but the fighter being pressured. And how can you make sure that you don't fall into their trap? Because if you do fall into their trap and fight their game, you may not be able to get out of it. And that's exactly what we saw. Lemos was able to hook on the inside, be relentless in his ability to force his way, despite the popping jabs of Hitchins, to be able to force his fight, get within the range. As a shorter fighter, as the man with the shorter reach, he forced Hitchins into a war he didn't want to be in. He took reckless chances. He took opportunities that you normally wouldn't want from somebody. But you have to do that against somebody who is a perfectionist. Imperfection can beat perfection when it's done perfectly. That's what we saw in Lemos. Lemos is an imperfect fighter. He's a buddy that swings wildly. He takes too many brash opportunities, and normally, like we saw in this fight, he will overcommit. He will overextend, and normally that is the thing that kills fighters in the ring. In terms of this, what beats them. We hope we don't want death in the ring, but in terms of what beats them in their game plan, it's exactly that. But with how it's done, it can be perfected, and it can be something that can actually overcome the pot-shotting perfection in another fighter, the pinpoint accuracy of another fighter. We saw it in Fundora when he beat Sue. Now, granted, circumstances were different, but the overall thing, in terms of the theme, is the same. You have outright pressure and volume. It can be a formula to beat somebody who is overly skilled than you by putting them in a game plan that they do not want to be in. Hence, you turn it into a fight that they may not have wanted it to be. And that outside of their comfort zone, that makes them vulnerable. That's exactly what Lemos did. Lemos caught Hitchins a bunch of times, stumbled and wobbled him a bunch of times, almost knocked this brother out, and could have knocked this brother out. Legitimately. It was wild how much I had never seen Hitchins on this much of a Dream Street situation. He was out a couple of times in terms of he was not sure of himself. His sure footing and his normally a pinpoint precision in his movements, it wasn't there because he was getting cracked, because he was getting beat up and bullied. Lemos hurt Hitchins. Lemos caught Hitchins. Lemos outworked Hitchins. Lemos bullied Hitchins. Lemos made Hitchins never be able to find full control in this fight. And he won nearly every round. After those first 2 rounds, it really turned into a snowball effect for Lemos. And he should have won. He should have won. There's no doubt in my mind that Lemos should have won this fight. It's ridiculous that we're sitting here and having Hitchins as the winner. And he said that he won the fight in his post-fight press conference. That's stupid as well. There's no way he won this fight. Had this fight 8-4. 7-5 maybe. But 8-4 would be what I gave this fight as. Because the accuracy of Hitchins wasn't controlling the day. And he wasn't hurting Lemos nearly as much as we saw Lemos hurting him. Consistently, after the second half of the fight, had this man on skates at some point in the rounds nearly every time out. Hitchins had his moments. Hitchins fought back. Hitchins was able to get aggressive. He landed flurries. Yes, he did. But it wasn't enough. It was not enough. And this fight should not have gone his way. This fight shouldn't have been his victory. This fight should have been in the favor of Gustavo Lemos. We should be seeing him in line to fight people like Subriel Matias or Isaac Cruz or any of the top champions in terms of having the ability to elevate his career. It's no disrespect to Hitchins. This is just what the reality is. This is not okay. This is not okay at all when it comes to what we saw from this fight. It's not. There's no way in the world that this could be seen as respectable. This isn't a respectable victory because he didn't win this fight. He lost this fight. And now this brings up so many more questions. Because we got to see Richardson Hitchins fight to survive, not fight to win, mind you. This brother was fighting to survive. He was fighting not to actually get a victory, but he was fighting just not to get knocked out. He wasn't boxing controlling the ring. He was only boxing to be able to survive another day. With all of that under the understanding of us. Now the question becomes, since he won this fight, he is now in contention for a legitimate title, like I've said multiple times. And he is potentially able to fight somebody like Subrial Matias. And since that is now in question, that brings up the situation as we move on. What is his ability to be able to compete at the highest level now that he's in this category with this win? Can he beat any of the elite fighters at 140 right now? Any champion who he's called out and said he wants to fight anybody, specifically Subriel Matias? And the answer to that is an emphatic no. Absolutely not. And in the words of good old JR,
hey, look at this! We got some problems here! We got some problems here!
We have some legitimate problems if we see Hitchins go up against any of the top champions, and specifically Matias. If Hitchins goes up against Matias, we are looking at one of the, to be perfectly honest, we're looking at the end of a budding career. We are looking at the end of a very promising career, because if he faces Hitchins in terms of Subriel Matias will destroy this brother. Subriel Matias is going to be a horror. It's going to be a horror show. It is literally the worst matchup possible for Hitchins to have to face as his career is coming up. There's no way he can beat him. There's no way he can beat T.O. Definitely can't beat Devin Haney. And sure enough, with what we saw Isaac Cruz do to Rolly, though we know Rolly is of a fighter, that type of style versus what we saw Lemos do, Isaac Cruz versus Hitchins, that's going to end in KO. That is a refined infighter versus somebody like Hitchins, who, if you force him into that realm of we're turning this into a fight, he doesn't know what to do. He can't compete because his perfection isn't backed by power, and his defense falls apart, especially when you're stronger than him. But the main thing is with Subriel Matias, there's no way that Hitchins can win. Hitchins will get destroyed. Hitchins might just be forced to shorten his career if he goes and fights against Subriel Matias. Subriel Matias and that relentless work rate, coupled with the outright raw strength, coupled with the ability to take whatever Hitchins will be able to throw at him, because Hitchins has no power. That is the biggest thing about Hitchins. His lack of power is a big deterrent for his ability to win a lot of these big time matchups, due to that being essentially a weakness. Because if you can't threaten anybody with your power, you got to be perfect in everything else. We've seen Devin Haney, when he was weight drained, didn't have power at 135. His boxing ability was enough to be able to still outclass opponents. Floyd Mayweather, his boxing ability. Napoleon Loche, his boxing ability. Those types of things can overwhelm, or rather overshadow, your inability to actually have pop when you go and fight somebody. That is what we were expecting, and what we have to expect from people that don't have the crack to make people respect them. Caleb Plant, another brother, doesn't have a whole lot of power. More than Richardson. Hitchins, but doesn't have a whole lot of power in that division of super middleweight. His boxing ability, however, is something that can still beat the majority of people in that division, because he's legitimately that skilled. But you have to be at a very elite level And we just saw Hitchins show that he's not at that level. He is good, but it is a straightforward way and a go-to plan. There is a go-to plan to be able to get him out of that quote-unquote perfection that really isn't perfection and make him into a vulnerable fighter. You go up against Subrial Matias, you are going to get whooped, destroyed, beat in a way that you've never felt before. Put in a situation where it is legitimately life or death. And I don't say that lightly because we've seen this man kill somebody, Maxim Dadashev, sadly before. It got overshadowed that this brother literally put somebody out, sadly. And with all respect to the warrior that was Maxim Dadashev. It got overlooked and got recently put up to light. Oh my gosh, this man now is a champion. He's got respectfully, a legitimate body on his record, doing the same thing that Deontay Wilder at one point in his career said that he dreamed of having at one point. He actually has that. There is legitimate life or death stakes, not just when you get in the ring in general, but against this specific opponent in Matias. It is not a game. And Hitchins is not ready for that type of war. He's not prepared for that. He can't win against Subriel, let alone against any of the elites. He is not at that level. He is not strong enough. He doesn't have the disciplined technique to be able to keep that same defensive posture and the accuracy to a volume that will be able to outmatch anybody. He can't do it. He can get forced into a war. He can be bullied into a situation that he is uncomfortable in. He can be caught. He can be hurt. He should have gotten a point deducted for the constant clinching that he was doing in this fight. Like we've seen with Devin Haney in the past, that I was very much angry about, because you can box and you can use the clinch to your advantage, absolutely. But if you're clinching all night long, there's got to be some form of point deduction. Something's got to go, because that's impeding the progress of the fight to a detriment, not to your advantage. It doesn't add anything. Hitchins wasn't clinching to reposition, wasn't fighting on the inside in the clinch. He was only clinching to survive. That was it. And it was dumb, because it was impeding. It wasn't anything conducive to winning. Hence, point deduction. And you can best believe if Hitchins tries that against Matias or Isaac Cruz or any of the champions, they will not only not allow the clinch to happen, they will fight out and they will catch you as you're escaping. That is definitely what will happen. You won't get away with it. You won't get away with it. You're going to get destroyed. Hitchins is not ready for that elite level. He's not. He is not. Because he couldn't keep his own composure. And he couldn't keep his own discipline. And not get put into a slugfest. This is all respect to Lemos. Lemos did exactly what he needed to do. He cracked the code to make the perfect, quote unquote, perfectionist unperfect. Make the perfectionist imperfection. Not saying that Hitchins is a perfect fighter, but the way that he fights, similar to what we've seen from Devin Haney and other accurate punchers, the fundamentals are incredibly sound. Absolutely. Get him out of that, though, we have a problem. Especially when he can't hurt you. And of the elite champions, or champions in general, he can't hurt anybody. There's no way he can win. At this stage, there's no way he can be a champion. With the current roster of champions, there is no way Hitchins can win. There's none. Either he will get knocked out or bullied by every single champion. I dare say he'll get knocked out by every champion if he fights. He'll get knocked out by Devin Haney. Yes, he will. Devin Haney at 140 was able to knock out Richie Pocris, who has a legitimate chin, who doesn't get put on the mat. He'll be able to knock out Hitchins. Isaac Cruz is going to destroy him. Subriel Matias is going to make him question this career choice if he faces him. Subrial Matias will beat him so bad, Hitchins will question his career choice. And then Teofimo Lopez, we already know, will get him out of there. There's no champion that he can actually win against with what he showed in this fight. This was supposed to be not just a show of your ability, but a stepping stone to the next level. And you did not pass the test. You failed. You robbed somebody that should have an opportunity. And you now going to be put in a situation where you are a deer in headlights. This moment and this stage and the opponents are too big for you to compete against. Too good for you to compete against. Again, I love watching Richardson Hitchins, but I respect the ability. I see the solid foundation that's there, and it's great to see him grow. But he's not ready yet. He's not. And he shouldn't be seen as somebody that is a real threat to anybody. Anybody who faces Hitchins is going to be easy pickings on the side of the champion. Because he will get demolished. Because they have everything that he is vulnerable to. Have a reach comparable to him, and or if shorter than him, they got the speed and the power to hurt him. And the boxing ability that he's still, with how good he is right now, with respect, he is good. They're better. No, there's no way he can win. Hitchins did not deserve this. The judging was terrible. Not deserve that win, and is now put in a situation where he is a deer in headlights. A lamb to the slaughter to any of these major champions at 140 pounds. He can't compete. Richardson Hitchins can't compete. Not yet. And a loss can potentially evolve him. Great. But the loss is going to come. Oh, it will come. Because he isn't ready for this level. He is not ready. Not ready at all for this level in the sport. Not ready at all. But as we now delve out of the world of boxing into the NBA, the MVP race has heated up, and you want to talk about banger after banger after banger of great performances from all of the elite contenders in this race for MVP. And what we need to understand, who now is in the lead as the shakeup, not just in the NBA, but specifically out west where most of the contenders are. It has drastically shifted. My goodness, the race, not just for the playoffs, has been so close, but the MVP has now gotten even tighter. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still dominating out in the West, leading his team to 54 wins, still averaging 30, but now a newcomer, well, not necessarily a newcomer, but a surge of energy from Luka Doncic, in my opinion, has put that man over the top for the solidified as the second place runner for the MVP right now. And there is a real argument that this man could actually be the leading candidate. Because with the stretch that the Dallas Mavericks have been on, and specifically the stretch that we have seen Luka on for the past couple months, individually, this brother has been utterly insane this year, leading the squad in the Dallas Mavericks to 48 wins on the year, has them in the playoffs in a stacked, competitive Western Conference. He has made this offense turn into one of the most lethal things in the league. The two-man duo of Kyrie and Luka has been utterly spectacular to watch. This season, it has evolved into exactly the menace to society that nobody, in terms of on the court, wanted to face and hope that they would evolve into. In Luka and Kyrie, they are magicians with the rock, and specifically with Luka. He, in his worst statistical month this season, he still put up 32, 8, and 8, just about. On the whole, he's averaging, rounded up, 34, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds, 33.9 points, 9.8 assists, and 9 rebounds on the year. He has been getting better and better as the season has wound down more and more. He has looked unstoppable, and it challenges the consistency that we've seen from Nikola Jokic, because on the whole with Jokic, he is still the best player in the world. That is undeniable. That's still true. That hasn't changed. But it has been, nobody has been able to match the all-around consistency and volume in every category that we've seen from Nikola Jokic. He's been in terms of efficiency, in terms of true shooting, every stat, and as well as just the eye test and just on the game standard metrics. Nikola Jokic has been that guy. He's been unstoppable. He's had perfect games this year. He's had phenomenal triple-doubles. He's been one of the most lethal hubs for a cornerstone of a team that this league has ever seen. I'm already saying that right now. He is a bona fide Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest offensive centers and potentially will be one of the greatest centers, period. Not even potentially. Outright will be one of the greatest centers, period, when it's all said and done. He's currently in his prime. And those why he has been able to touch that prime relatively close up until Joel Embiid, who would have won it this year, arguably, with how he was leading that 76er squad and his individual performance up until he got injured. But now Luka has come out the woodwork, and I think it wouldn't be out the question, with only a couple games left in the season, as the playoffs come about, if we see Luka Doncic keep this same level of consistency and Dallas keeps winning, then we could see Luka win MVP for the first time. One of many, potentially, as his career rolls on. It's not out the question. Because, yes, people have different metrics for how the MVP should be calibrated. Some people say records. Some people say it's individual production. Some people say it's a bunch of other things. Well, I've already given my criteria. It is individual production, number one. Then your team record, number two, and your impact on the entirety of the squad, which, again, entails your individual production. All of it. As well as where you are in the ethos of basketball will inevitably take effect if you are seen as one of the top 10 best players. That does help your ability to win this award. That is true. We know this is true. We've seen this is true. We hate on this channel. We hate voter fatigue. We don't do that. The only reason I would say Nikola Jokic shouldn't win MVP and shouldn't have won it last year, if he didn't deserve it last year, which he did deserve it last year. Let's not get it twisted. But the only reason why I would take away anything from Nikola Jokic is if somebody aptly deserved and ripped away that mantle of, okay, he outplayed you this season. Normally, I wasn't going to say anybody was doing that. Even with the great play of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even with the dominant play of somebody like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has been this season, even despite the Bucks' recent struggles with them trying to figure out what's going on under Doc Rivers, Giannis is still averaging 30, 11, and 6 on incredible shooting percentage still. Offensively, he has stepped his game up even more. Again, 6 assists as a brother who isn't even the lead point guard, has been just as good of a defender in his offensive ability. One of the best years we've seen from Giannis individually. And he's still third or fourth in this running. It's insane. But the only reason why I would give anybody above Nikola is if they ripped it away. So despite all the other phenomenal performances, despite Shai and Giannis, despite even somebody like a Domantas Sabonis, who has been undervalued with this legitimate production, has cemented himself as one of the best bigs in the league, one of the best players in the world. Luka and Jokic have separated themselves, and even amongst that separation, Luka at this stage right now has hit such a fast and dominant stretch of just elite basketball. It's hard for me to say that if he didn't keep this up for the rest of the season, he could win it. It's hard for me to say that because the record doesn't mean everything. Yes, the Nuggets have, I believe, one of the best records in the league, if not not the best record in the NBA. That is the Boston Celtics. But in the West, they got 54 wins. I believe they're tied with I'm right. They're tied with the Timberwolves. 54 wins each in the Western Conference. But that record, coupled with Nikola Jokic and his stats, normally that would win anything. But it's the fact that if we see Luka, even with him not being the top team in the Western Conference, brother, with the season that he's put on and how he's gotten better and better as the seasons progressed, The weaknesses that we used to have aren't weaknesses anymore. He was never a bad three-point shooter. Now he's shooting phenomenally. This season, I believe, shooting 38% from three. After being in previous years a mid to low 30s three-point shooter. Contested shots, he's been nigh unstoppable from behind the arc. Has seemingly hit his prime in terms of the flow of basketball. And he's performing at such a high, dominant rate with how with how the Mavericks are looking right now, with them being fifth in the Western Conference, potentially can move up even more as the season goes on. Luka can win it. Do not be surprised if we see Luka winning MVP, because this stretch this is ridiculous. This is stupid. What we're seeing from Luka, even with the dominant performances that we know we watch on a nightly basis from Nikola Jokic. It's a two-man race now. And boy, that race is getting closer and closer. I'm telling you, if we see Luka for the next stretch of games put up like 40, 30 on phenomenal performances and averages, and they keep on winning, though they won't have the best record in the West, it would be hard-pressed for me to say that he didn't earn the right to win it. I mean, we are watching the amount of high-level ball that we're experiencing from everybody on the whole in the totality of this league, with everybody playing at such a dominant level, where it's nitpicking at this point. It really is. It truly is nitpicking. But we have to nitpick, because if we want to be correct, we want to be right, we want to tell the history of this basketball sport correctly and get it right the first time. We don't want revisionist history. We don't want to revisit and say, oh man, in actuality, this brother should have won instead of the other guy. We don't want that. So we have to nitpick. This is necessary. And because it's necessary, even with Nikola Jokic averaging 26, 12, and 9, it's a catch-22. Either one can deservedly win if we see Luka continue this stretch for the rest of the year. If we see his team, let's say this team goes undefeated for the rest of the season and he's putting on this performance, I would have to give it to him. If he loses a couple games but still puts on dominant performances, now we got a really hard decision. It's tough. It's really tough between these two. These are two of some of the best players in the world. Luka elevating his game even more to the point where offensively this brother may be nigh unstoppable. I don't know what you can do with him. Going up against another nigh unstoppable hub of offense in Nikola Jokic, it's a pick your poison. I really don't know. I don't know who is going to win. If we keep seeing this stretch and it goes not even perfect, just nearly perfect for Luka, with all the consistency that we've seen from Nikola Jokic this entire year, and he goes in terms of Luka and all of a sudden elevates his game to an even higher standard. Because in both situations with these players, stats don't tell everything. If you just looked at the numbers, okay, hey, Luka won it. Boom, we're good to go. We can go home. But that's not the case. It's not. It truly isn't that simple in this situation. The numbers don't tell the story. And in the whole, it really doesn't. Because we have seen Nikola Jokic without the majority of his stars at one point still dominate the league. We've seen him with his stars turn that team into a champion. We know that we've seen Nikola Jokic. Just recently he had, I believe, Jamal Murray out. And he ran a two-man game with every other player on his team. And it looked like nothing had changed. It's wild. It is wild what we're seeing from Luka. And at the same vein, Excuse me, from Nikola Jokic, my apologies. But at the same vein with Luka, we're seeing something where we're seeing a brother evolve into another beast than he was, bigger than he was already. As every game progresses, while his team is picking up steam and being successful. It's flabbergasting how much talent we're seeing from these two. Whoever you pick, it's up. It's gonna be hard to pick. Only if we don't see Luka essentially sweep the rest of the season and beat everybody. I mean everybody. But if we see him even have a split some games, and he's still putting up this level of numbers and production, I really don't know who to pick. But regardless of who you choose, we got talent left, right, and center. We got so much stuff going for us in this league. But the biggest thing that's a problem with this whole diatribe of talent is that some stuff gets unappreciated. And that brings us to the next point in the show, talking about bag talk specifically. For those who don't know, maybe for the older crowd who maybe isn't accustomed to the new lingo that goes on, bag talk is essentially the arsenal that you have as a player in the NBA. Is it deeper than somebody else's? How deep of a bag is it that you have? Is essentially how much of an array of weapons do you have at your disposal that you can use? Kyrie, for example, arguably has the deepest bag in the entirety of the league. In terms of what he can do, the amount of moves he can go to, counter on counter, and what he can do with the rock is something to behold. And it's nigh untouched by anybody in the league. However, people will say with that bag, okay, he's got the best bag outright. But then other people say, well, does he though? Because then you got somebody like Nikola Jokic, two-time MVP, dominant performer, one of the best offensive players in the entire world, the best player in the entire world right now. People say that his bag is limited. He doesn't have a bag. Or his bag is boring, quote unquote. LeBron doesn't have a bag. Doesn't have a great arsenal. Jordan Poole has a major bag. Moves on moves on moves. But he's nowhere near close to that conversation being the best in the world. Nowhere close. In fact, for a stint in time, he was statistically the worst player in the league. So with all of this confusing mess around what is and isn't not only a valuable bag, but a good bag, a respectable bag, why is it that we're putting players that do have bags deemed as boring? But that I mean specifically with Nikola Jokic. And to a degree, Giannis and LeBron. Those three specifically get talked about as they don't have a major bag. Now, I preference all this before we continue. We've heard LeBron on his podcast talk about how he hates bag talk because bag talk seems useless. It's a 5-on-5 game. Why are you only relegating it to who's got the biggest or deepest bag in a one-on-one situation? And I fully understand it. And I agree. But at the same time, having an arsenal is something that is still valuable. And still, you can objectively say somebody has less than somebody else. That's perfectly fine. But to say that it's still not deep or it's still not better, that's where I have a problem with. See, understand this when it comes to talking about and evaluating talent in basketball. Just because somebody doesn't have a deep bag doesn't mean that their bag isn't better. An arsenal of knives is not better than a refined, sharpened, and insanely well-kept katana. One blade can beat 100 knives. That's legitimately what it is. One blade can beat 100 knives. 100 sharp blades, however, can beat a good katana, a good blade. It's not about just the amount. It's about the refined ability. And in some situations, the refined ability, even if it's limited, can be better than the arsenal that somebody else has. We'll take, again, Jordan Poole versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jordan Poole has a deeper bag. In and outs, crossovers, the creativity with the ball in his hands, the amount of just shot making ability in terms of where he can shoot on the floor, what type of shots he can shoot. Oh, it's great. It's fun to watch. It's not efficient, but it's fun to watch. He's got so many moves that he can use. Giannis, people deem him as a run and dunk, though that's not what he is at all. He can drive and spin. He has a baby hook. We'd like him to use it more often, but still, he's got it. He can back it down, get on the inside, and he can drive. So it's more limited, yes. But it has gotten him an MVP, I believe 2 MVPs. And has been an arsenal that nobody could stop. Shaq. Look, we can go further. We can go further back. Shaq. His bag was literally power. He even had a baby hook that he said, oh yeah, that hook shot that I shot was stupid. He still had it though. It was still working for him. It was still effective. Relegated to about 5 feet inside the paint. And nobody could stop him. Are you going to say he doesn't have a bag? And if the answer is yes, okay, then what does he have? Well, he knows how to use his strength. Well, then what is that? That's a arsenal. And it ain't like he didn't have moves inside the paint. No, he knew what he was doing. Utilizing what you have is what makes your bag, quote unquote, deep or not, in the frame of if it's quality. You don't need a bunch of stuff to be effective. But if you're effective with the stuff that you got, that's when you become lethal. That is what people need to understand when it comes to the bag though. The amount of stuff you can do isn't relegated to the effectiveness of the stuff. A deep bag of moves and a deep arsenal of artillery doesn't mean that you are a great shooter. Doesn't mean that you are a killer. It just means you got a lot going for you. But if you can use it, that's when you truly become, something serious. That's when my bag can be seen as better than yours because my bag is effective. LeBron, people say he don't got a bunch of dribble moves. He looks stiff. Well, one, he can't legitimately dribble. We've seen it before. But his style of play, what he utilizes, is what would be seen as, he's just being big. But he's not. He's got a turnaround. He's got a mid-range. He's got up and unders. He is one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen. One of the greatest players, in my opinion, the greatest player in history. But that's just my opinion. But the point being, his bag is there. It just doesn't look like the aesthetic bags that we've seen from others, like a Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's bag is deep and refined. Great. Absolutely. But Nikola Jokic, for example, people deem him as a boring MVP, a boring champion, a boring player, similar to Tim Duncan. People don't want to talk about the Nuggets nor watch Nikola Jokic for some odd reason. But when the reality of the situation is, Jokic's bag is one of the deepest bags in the league. Because here's what a bag should consist of for everybody. Everything that a player can do. A bag isn't just your ability to score. It's also passing ability, court vision, adaptability, and defense. Everything should be put inside a bag of what somebody can do. Because everything is a legitimate skill set. And without one, you can become a liability to another. Kawhi has a bag on defense, and on offense, he does have a bag as well to be able to do multiple things. But specifically sticking with the offensive sense of this whole argument, when it comes to the offensive bags of players, like Nikola Jokic, he is somebody who has a deep bag. He has so many moves. It's so pretty to watch. His passing arsenal is arguably the best in the league. It is legitimately something. He is going to be one of the greatest passers that we've ever seen, regardless of position. He will be. The creativity, the ability to see what's happening before it happens, the accuracy, the constant ability to thread the needle, the creativity, the slickness, and he does stuff with the rock on the passing end alone that nobody else can do. And then on the offensive end, when he's trying to score, he can back you down. He can run through you. He's got up and unders. He can do shimmy hooks. He's got the sombor shuffle from any spot on the floor. He can shoot the three from everywhere at a high efficient volume. Contested or not, like we saw when he killed the Lakers, consistently with that step back three that looked like a well out of water, yet it was always wet in terms of the splash for the ball hitting the net every time he put a shot up. He's killed every single type of player, every single type of defense with an arsenal that is nigh infinite with what it looks like, with how he's been able to play. The soft touch around the rim, no matter where he's at on the floor, is never gone. The creativity to be able to make stuff out of nothing is all there. The real problem with bag talk when it comes to Jokic or LeBron or Giannis or anybody that's deemed as limited or one-dimensional is the fact that you're only limiting it to just what is aesthetically pleasing or what you want to pay attention to. That's the real thing. Don't limit the bag to what you want to pay attention to. Limit the bag to actually what is their bread and butter. Giannis can go and drive and spin from the left or the right. Has the Euro step, has mastered the Euro step to become one of the most lethal moves in his arsenal. Can dunk on you and through you. Has become an elite finisher with both hands. And has upped his ability to be a passer. He has a deep bag. Yes, he does. It's not just run and dunk like James Harden tried to say. It's ridiculous to say that. Jokic, like I just said, the most versatile amount of post moves in the entirety of the league. But because people don't look at post work as bag, it means nothing. It means nothing. The amount of moves that he has is comparable to the amount of moves Kyrie has on the ball when he's dribbling. That is Nikola Jokic in the paint. The ability to be able to create out of everything. You can't counter him because he doesn't play with a plan. He just plays with whatever you give him. He just goes and just adapts like water. That is what Kyrie and Nikola Jokic do in their respective lanes that they try to score. And it works flawlessly, and they are unstoppable at it. Yet you say Nikola Jokic doesn't have a bag. That's ridiculous. LeBron, for years, he's just big and strong. No, he's not. Mastered the spin move. Has been able to get on the inside and constantly has adapted his finishing ability. Can finish with both hands. Has an array of post moves, mid-range, hop jumpers, hop steps, and this passing ability, again, is one of the best that we have ever seen in the league. In history. Doing things that nobody else can do with the rock. Yet we say he doesn't have a bag. It's stupid. It really is dumb that we keep doing this when it comes to bag talk, because it takes away what should be and the outright appreciation that we have for these players, because then you relegate them to a certain standard that they shouldn't be held to, and by that I mean you relegate them to a certain way of play that takes you out of wanting to be invested in them. Nikola Jokic, post moves, boring. He's not fun to watch. That offense isn't fun to watch. But when you watch them face off against the Lakers, you got mad and were throwing stuff at your TV with how ridiculous Nikola Jokic was in killing everybody on that team, and with how Jamal Murray and that entirety of that offense that the Nuggets were running was something that was just, oh my goodness, they are just flamethrowers from everywhere. And they are fun and fluid to watch. You can't stop contradicting yourself when it comes to these conversations, because you're killing yourself when it comes to what you want to enjoy when it comes to basketball and sports in general. Bag talk is ridiculous because of how it's talked about. The conversation is valid. Absolutely. The conversation is warranted. The conversation can happen. No doubt about it. There's no problem there. The problem comes into play when the conversation goes into a territory of you are now making a narrative that takes out the excitement from a player that is indeed exciting, all because they don't do what you like to do. But if you took time to watch and actually appreciate what you see, then you'll be able to say, oh my gosh, yeah, this is incredible. It makes no sense how you can marvel at his footwork and be like, man, this brother gets me so hot because he just keeps making all these ridiculous shots, yet then call him a boring player. You can't. You can't do that. You can't say somebody's boring and all he does is run and dunk like Giannis, yet you get excited every time he goes and dunks the ball. You can't, it makes no sense. It's a contradiction that hurts the game that we should not be having. These players have bags. Many players that you say don't have bags have a deeper bag than most of the people in the NBA. But it's where their bag is deep at that you don't care about. And if you say passing isn't part of a bag, then you're ridiculous and you're stupid. Because if that's the case, then Magic Johnson had no bag. We have to say that. Jason Kidd had no bag. Steve Nash had no bag. Every great point guard didn't have a bag. Or at least part of the bag was gone. Then at that point, the only person you can really say had a bag would be people like Isaiah Thomas. In terms of from the dribbling standpoint. Because one of the biggest things about them that made them so unique, you'd say isn't even valid, isn't even warranted, is nigh forgettable. It's stupid. It's incredibly dumb. Stop that type of thinking. Make yourself see what the game truly is. Understand the facets of what bags can be, not just what you want them to be. And then from that point, you will then be able to see who indeed does and doesn't have a bag in their arsenal. You will. Because Luka and Kyrie definitely have a bag. Jokic has just as much of a bag as them. Maybe not in terms of the amount of stuff they can do. But in terms of what he is able to do, it's unstoppable. More unstoppable than what we've seen from them. And where he's unstoppable at, it just isn't aesthetically pleasing to the most of the casual basketball fans. Only because they don't want to pay attention to it. But it's not hard just to enjoy what goes on in the paint, what goes on in different facets of the floor, and then have yourselves be opened up to the world of unique skill sets that indeed makes you have a deep bag. Or a refined bag, rather. Just because somebody's bag has more in their arsenal does not mean that they are indeed a better bag. As well as you can have a deep bag, but just because it's not in the way that the public wants it to be, like down low in the post, like in passing, now you're seen as a boring player. That's an idiotic statement that nobody should have. An idiotic sentiment that everybody should push away from. That's not helping the game. It's not helping you to be able to enjoy what this sport is all about, which is seeing everybody with their own unique skills, their own unique bag, look to dominate any night that they go and play. And when you open your eyes to that, that's when you'll see truly the beauty of the game. But with all that being said, this has been another episode of The Welch Report. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the show. Again, please leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts and opinions, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with everybody that you know so we can keep on building up this empire of a community together. I have been John Luke Welch. Y'all have been absolutely wonderful as viewers. Again, we still got more to cover as the week goes on. We'll be back again with more episodes, more fun, more excitement, and more takes, opinions, and rants about everything that we have going on in the sports world. And I'll be your guide through it all. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please share the show with everybody. Like I said before, I've been John Luke Welch. Peace and love. We are out of here.